Whoa, 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 you might be thinking, this is not Raid Shadow Legends. Well, to that I say congratulations, Detective. Nothing gets past you. We are starting off this video in Watcher of Realms because I want to be able to draw a juxtaposition to another game that's fairly popular with inside the realm of the whole turn-based or, real-time type of battle gotcha system like Raid Shadow Legends. I didn't do a very good job describing it, but we all know what Raid Shadow Legends is. Let's be honest. Let's move past it, right? I'm 100% free to play in Watcher of Realms. 100% free to play. I have not spent a single cent on this game, not even the Iona's top-up option that you get, no energy, nothing like that, and I have been incredibly blessed to get some of the best champions in the game. So obviously I have a Awakened 2 Nyx, so I pulled 3 different Nyx champions. She's definitely a very good marksman. I have an Abomination. I have not completed the fusion, so I pulled 2 copies of him because he's Awakened 1. I have an Awakened 1 Valeria. I have the Trusk, who seems to be a very good champion as well. I just pulled an Arachna. I have Vierna. I have Comet. As I scroll through this, it just gets more and more crazy, right? I have a Lust. I have the Silas to go with the Vierna as well. I recently pulled a Zilla2, who seems to be a very, very good champion as well. Her reviews are incredible. I have a Kineza, who I don't know if she's any good, but I do like her for a couple of reasons. I don't know specifically what they are. I can't put my finger on it, but she seems like a very, very cool champion, to say the least. And then if we come down here to Epics, of course, I have an Awakened Vierna, I have Brienne. Just all of this is to say, and I want to flex my account a little bit, sure, but all of this is to say that I get excited when I pull champions in this game. I get a little dopamine spike, right? Because there's not many champions in the game. And even though there aren't many champions in the game, I'm not pulling duplicates. I'm pulling new champions, and the 15Xs are actually impactful, right? Like, there's so many new champions I can pull. The duplicates that I have pulled have been very good champions, so it's overall very, very enjoyable. Even for epic champions, it's very cool, because if you haven't played Watcher of Realms, if you get a duplicate epic, you can essentially just sell them, and you get currency for your Awakening shop, where you can buy auto fights, you can buy some essence to ascend your stuff, or you can get targeted soul stones that rotate every so often, right? You have duplicate legendaries, you sell those, you can get the equivalent of legendary books, you can get targeted soul stones, all that sort of good stuff. So simply put, it's a joy to pull champions in this game. I would say you get more shards than Raid. The champions are debatably cooler, and the designs are every bit as good, and there's way less of them, so the champions that you do pull will be impactful, and the 15Xs, they'll actually mean something. Like, if we have a look right here, there's 15Xs on these champions. I'd be willing to bet that if I pulled a legendary, it would be one of these champions. And as a proof of that, this champion was on a 15X banner. I pulled a legendary, and it was her. There was no bullshit about it. There was no pulling 30 different champions just to try and get the one I'm hunting. I just straight up pulled the 15X. I got the champion that was on it, and that was it. It was done. Okay, all of this. Let's hop over the raid, and we'll get that little bit of a juxtaposition going. We're back now, and we're inside Raid Shadow Legends, so let's start by talking about this game a little bit. Let me show you my account. I have a decent roster. I won't lie. I've spent probably about $500 to $600 in this game over my span of playing it, and I have some decent champions, right? Most of the high-tier champions I have are going to be fusions, so for example, Armands. I do have 2 mythicals, which I managed to get very lucky and pull a Trixia, which is nice. And of course, from the Void Shards, I do have Taurus and Marichka. However, Taurus and Marichka took me probably about 2 years after they were released to pull, by which point they were basically indirectly nerfed into oblivion, so they're not even the meta champions anymore, right? Let's go ahead and take a look at the champions that I don't have. So, we come over here to Undead Hordes. I don't have a Rotos. I don't have a Sifi, a Necrit, I don't have Little Miss Annie, I don't have Duchess, Candrafon, there's the one nuker, Baron, I don't have Baron, I don't have any of the really, really meta champions, right? This is an issue for me because out of my last probably about 4 to 5 legendary pulls, at least 3 of them have been duplicates. So I don't know if they're in this. Yeah, I have so many duplicate Nethrils at this point. I have duplicates of that champion there whose name I've forgotten. He used to be a fusion back in the day as well. Essentially, the game is just getting super, super annoying to try and pull champions because there's so goddamn many of them at this point. It's to the point where a 15x or, you know, so this is a targeted summon boost for a 10 times chance on a Riho. If I pull a legendary from the Void Shard, I am not at all confident that I'd be pulling the champion that's actually on that banner. There is so many champions in the game right now, and still I am pulling duplicate fucking legendaries. And this video is definitely going to lean into kind of the toxic side of Raid right now, because I want to discuss the state of it. And this is an issue because, for example, let's take a look at a Sifi, right? Let's say they put a Sifi on a 10x banner. Cool. Unless I spend hundreds, possibly thousands of dollars, maybe even tens of thousands of dollars on my credit card, there is no way in hell I can be confident that I'll get her, especially as a free-to-play or a low-spend player, right? Unless, again, you're spending hundreds or thousands of dollars to try and get this champion. And why is that an issue, you might ask? Well, a lot of late-game raid content right now comes down to the arenas. So whether it be Classic, Live, or Tag Team, mainly Live and Classic though, Tag Team is just kind of the forgotten child of the three. For Live Arena, you need certain champions. You need certain champions. Let me emphasize that. You need certain champions. And what do I mean by that? So for example, right now in pretty much every single battle that I'm fighting, Armand's is picked either by the enemy team or by you. Pretty much every single battle, a Crixia is picked either by the enemy team or by you. Sifi is picked by the enemy team because I don't have her. Rotos is picked usually by the enemy team. I don't have him. There's so many champions that are basically mandatory requirements to participate in this area of the game that is really the only content that late game players are going to be able to enjoy. Nobody's sitting here thinking, oh boy, I'm excited to go do 300 runs in Dragon 20 today, or Dragon Hard 10 today. This is so exciting. Oh boy, I'm excited to go and do my Hydra run, which is probably going to take me an hour and a half just to get a decent score. Exciting content. Nobody's sitting here thinking, oh wow, I am excited to fight the same Doom Tower bosses that we've had for the last like year or 2 years that it's been released. Oh boy, what exciting content. Oh wow, I'm excited to take those materials over into the Forge and have more RNG and more currencies to try and get more gear so that I can play Live Arena, right? It's a real issue. It's an issue because Raid is focusing so much now, seemingly, on introducing new champions and just diluting the champion pool even more than it already is. And that is a problem because when you're just focusing on adding new champions, you're not reworking current ones. Let's take the Taurus and Marichka as an example. Taurus and Marichka were not balanced, they were not nerfed, there was no adjustments made to their stats, nothing like that. What did we do instead? We implemented another duo set of champions to counter these ones. Let's take a look at, for example, Rotos. Rotos wasn't adjusted, they added UDK to counter him instead. Let's take a look at Armand's, a perfect example. So the Vault Keeper Wixwell fusion coming up could have been a very interesting champion where he would place poisons when he revives and he would explode poisons and all that sort of cool stuff. Is he going to be? No. Why not? Because the community had to decide to vote for specific skills so that we can counter this fucking champion in Live Arena who's getting picked every single battle. The champion, so the Vault Keeper, he's coming out with a new intercept buff, which is hopefully going to help to counter these stuns and these sheeps, because as of right now, Armand's has literally no counter in the game. None. There's nothing you can do about it. He's placing a sheep, a feature that everybody has hated on the Polymorph Blessing, and now this champion can just place it. Not only that, he also strips every single buff from the rest of the enemies. Not only that, on his A2, he steals every enemy champion's turn meter and then also places a fucking stun on them. So you take out any of your counterplay with champions that are immune to turn meter decrease. You take out the counterplay of champions that are immune to stun, because sure, you might be immune to the stun, but you also have no turn meter left. Sure, you might be immune to the turn meter decrease, but now you're also stunned, so good luck. And it's just absolutely ridiculous. This game, I'm still going to keep playing it. This is just my rant that I wanted to make. I am so frustrated with where the game is at these days. Cursed City, for example. We go over here to the normal mode. What do we get for grinding out this late game content that is supposedly the hardest in the game? You get a chest that you can open that gives you some of these great rewards. fantastic rewards, right? What could you get? Well, you could get a 3-star chicken. What else could you get? A rare book. What, like 150 energy? It takes you like, what, multiple months probably, maybe 1 month at least to get this chest. And then you're going to go ahead and open it, and you get 4 of these rewards randomly, which is stuff that you can get from doing, you know, for example, Faction Wars Daily. This is 5-star glyphs, people. This isn't even 6-star glyphs. I do 2 runs of Iron Twins, and I already have more currency than that, right? It's fucking ridiculous. We even go over to hard. What do we get? Well, we get kind of a cool nuker at the end of it, but nukers are a dime a dozen. It would have been cool if this is a champion that might actually be relevant, but it's probably not going to be because of polymorph and something like Armands. You're not going to get a lot of use out of them. Not to mention what Cintranos has turned into. When it came out, it was like, oh cool, do I have enough champions to beat this stage? What kind of unique champions can I use? Now, it's just, okay, let's wait for the first of every month so we can re-gear every fucking champion on our account to actually progress in this content. That's what it's come down to. That's why they have the free gear removals at the start of each month. It's not that they're just being generous, it's just that nobody would participate in this content if you still had to pay to remove your gear, because there's so much of it required for every single one of these stages. Just to progress in this area here, I had to re-gear like 8 different champions. 8 different champions I had to re-gear. And not only that, if we take a look at Watcher of Realms, you can come in here and in the gear management screen, you can quickly switch an entire set between different champions, different heroes, right? And it's free of charge. There's no charges for it. Raid, if I wanted to come in here and switch one singular piece, when it's not the free gear swap event, I'm paying like thousands of silver, probably about 50,000 to I think 150,000 per piece roughly, depending on who it's coming from, rank, all that sort of good stuff. And silver is definitely not very easily acquired in the game either, and the problem too, so late game players now, and even, I would say, late and mid-game players, they're farming Sand Devil's Necropolis. And let's just talk about this for a second, right, before I get back to my main point. Sand Devils, if you're farming stage 25, you're doing it with a Godseeker and Eerie and a Ninja or somebody else who does burns. You're not bringing in an entire team. You're not bringing in the daily login champion Adeline. You're bringing in Godseeker and Eerie, and you're bringing in Ninja. That's how you're doing it. And then Phantom Shogun, you're either incredibly free to play, and you get some awakenings on a few champions, luckily, to allow you to do this, or you just wail out on it and you come in with fully awakened champions. So it's definitely kind of a paywall to some extent. I haven't really pushed into it that far, but I probably should, in all honesty. It is what it is. Let's go back to this, though. Sand Devils and Shogun's Cove gives you basically butt fuck all for silver. Why is that an issue? Well, the place endgame players used to farm previously was Spider, which gives you some of the best silver gains in the game. Now, with farming these 2 dungeons that don't give any, combined with Cursed City, that requires you to constantly re-gear champions, everybody is in a silver shortage unless you're spending obscene amounts of money on the game and you have basically infinite energy. So even mid-game players are going to be struggling to do this. They're going to be struggling to get the oils and then have enough silver to re-gear champions. It's such an absolute shit show. And I think a lot of people are still just playing Raid because they don't really have an alternative, and there's not really a game that's competing at this quality or at this size, or perhaps at this level of marketing as Raid, right? Like, there are some other good games out there. Watcher of Realms is a perfect example. They just don't have the same marketing behind them as Raid does, the same budget, right? So that holds them back a little bit. And I do definitely hope that when Hell Hades releases his game, it gives some serious competition to Raid, because what should be happening right now instead is rebalancing champions. So for example, I come down here to Undead Hordes. Am I going to be excited about pulling my 3rd fucking Nethril on my account? Probably not, right? Why? All I can do is I can empower him, which I might do a video on that at some point, or I can put him in here as a Faction Guardians, where my champions now get an extra 10% HP. Fantastic, right? Amazing. Am I going to be excited about pulling my 2nd or 3rd Tatura Rhyme that I don't even use anywhere anyways? Probably not, is going to be my guess. Probably not. I think what we should do, instead of adding obscene amounts of new champions, is we should come back here and we should start buffing some of the champions that are already pretty terrible in the game. Manai was a good example of that. Manai is now actually kind of exciting to use. Why would this be nice? Because it would actually bring back the excitement of pulling new champions. It would actually bring back a little bit of strategy in the live arena. When you're just constantly upping yourself over and over and over and over, that reaches a ceiling, essentially. If we take a look at, let's say, the John Wick franchise in movies, by the fourth one, it was just so ridiculously, it had been one-upping itself continuously that the dude was basically a superhero by the end of it, because they just had to keep upping what they were doing to keep people's interest. And Raid is falling into that same rabbit hole where they added ridiculously OP champions, and now they're adding, like, mythical champions that are ridiculously OP. It's not going to end well. What we need to do now is start balancing some of the old champions we have. There's enough champions in the game, Plarium. There's enough, okay? There is enough. We have probably close to, if not over 1,000 champions now when you count like rares and uncommons and stuff like that. That is perfectly fine. We don't need more than that. What we need is a rebalance to make these champions fun to pull and fun to use. If I'm not excited about pulling a champion, I am not going to use that champion, and if I'm not getting champions that I'm going to use, I am not going to play your game.